this is John for MTG Nexus coming back at you with the same list we ran yesterday to the 5-0. This is the 5-color Valky, God of Lies, otherwise known as Tibalt Cosmic Imposter, combo deck for lack of a better term. This is very similar to a list that 3-1 a prelim a couple days ago, and that Squad Chief used to get a 5-0 yesterday, and also I believe had a 4-1. This deck is one of the newest evolutions of the Cascade into broken stuff decks. It's not quite as broken instantly as far as the, Tibalt's Trickery, Emrakul decks, but it's still very difficult in a lot of spots to beat a turn 2 or turn 3 7-mana Planeswalker that allows you to play spells off the top of both players' decks. Toward that end, you're playing 4 copies of Ardent Plea, 4 copies of Valen Outburst, and 4 copies of Simian Spirit Guide, hoping to hit a turn 2 Valky, God of Lies, which you can then cast the Tibalt Cosmic Imposter off of the flip cards currently. Another card that used to have these problems was these split cards, Warrant Warden, Far Away, Boom Bust. People would cascade into Boom and then cast Bust. I really think a similar errata or changing of things needs to happen with these flip cards. Just being able to cast a 7-mana Planeswalker on turn 2 or turn 3 is just kind of absurd. Beyond that, you're taking advantage of the split cards and the adventure cards to be able to play some cheaper mana cards to interact with your opponent on turn 2. Bone Crusher Giant, Brazen Borrower, giving you some outs in situations. And then Teferi Time Raveler is very important against both the blue mirrors, because you're really lacking a bunch of counter magic, especially game number 1. Landing a Teferi can kind of shut down your opponent's ability to interact with what you're doing, and it's very difficult to deal with a Valky once it's in play, or I should say Tibalt, not Valky. There are cards that see play, Ether Gust, Celestial Purge. There are clean answers to the card, but by the time if it's in play, by the time you answer it, you've minimum got a 3-for-1. Now, whether those spells are relevant or not, it's a whole other story. But you are at least getting one activation off, and being able to flip, card off the top of your deck, card off the top of your opponent's deck, and you can continue to play them even if Tibalt is dealt with. Beyond that, you are a Force of Negation deck, which does give you some outs to the Tibalt's Trickery combo decks, which are important, also allowing you to protect Violent Outburst into Tibalt on their turn. Brazen Borrower, Bone Crusher Giant give you some amount of pressure against control decks, which was relevant against the 2 control decks we played yesterday. You also have some Supreme Verdicts, some Far and Aways, and Warrant Wardens as additional ways to pressure your opponent or to control your opponent's creatures, as one of the weaknesses this deck does have a little bit too is to aggressive draws if you don't get a quick Valky down. Commandeer is kind of another pseudo Force of Will / Force of Negation / ridiculous card. This is another one of those Cold Snap broken cards that you'll see. Usually you see them in the form of like Allosaurus Rider or Fury of the Horde. They're just not doing fair things. I mean, yes, you're exiling 2 blue cards from your hand, but I used this to steal a Teferi from our opponent yesterday, or Teferi Time Raveler from our opponent yesterday. Just kind of completely shutting down their plan. And the fact that you can exile this with Valky and exile cards from your hand kind of gets stupid. Sideboard, 4 Leyline of Synecdoche for burn and discard decks, 4 Leyline in the Void for things like Oops All Spells, any type of graveyard shenanigans like Dredge, 4 copies of Mystical Dispute for any type of Blue-based deck. Also, you can bring it in a pinch against the Tibalt's Trickery Mirror. 2 copies of Threads of Disloyalty for any type of creature matchups, and then Gemstone Caverns when you're on the draw and need a little bit more speed. So, not saying we're going to 5-0, but the deck just doesn't feel fair, if we're being completely honest. Feels like you're operating on an entirely other level of dumb in a modern format that already feels like it's kind of gone off the rails the last couple of days. I think Fran, noted Amulet Titan streamer, has given up on Modern for the moment. I suspect you're going to see other Modern streamers doing the same thing. A lot of the decks that I like to play just aren't really particularly playable right now. And I'm not even sure the 4-color or even Uro piles can keep up with this kind of nonsense. We beat a Sultai Uro deck yesterday. We beat a blue-white control deck yesterday. And while I'm not saying this deck can't lose games or matches, it just feels completely absurd. Well, I don't think I can risk this hand, unfortunately. If this was like a colored source or something, maybe I could try to risk keeping the 1-lander. But I think with just 1 land, I'm supposed to mulligan this hand. This hand's much better. We are against a Lurrus deck, so it's either, well, it could be Burn, could be Hammertime, could be, okay, it looks like it's Hammertime. They have a Thoughtseize on one, it'd be interesting. Nope. We need a red source and a Plains, Mountain, Swamp, Island, Mountain, Plains. Forest, Island, Mountain. Guess we go with this one for now. So ironically, we have to exercise. We have to exile the Ornithopter here, which obviously kind of sucks, but next turn we'll have the Brazen Borrower up to interact with him. I just don't want to get comboed this turn. Sure. Well, it has at least 1 hammer in hand, possibly 2. Shouldn't have played that land before. It's drawing a Silent Clearing. Sure. Let that equip. Kind of screwed up there with the mana. Now I can't cast Valky. We just pass here. Our opponent kind of do their thing here. If Thoughtseize me, and sure, one of their other cards in hand is a Shadow Spear. Putting the rest into their hand. Curious why you'd put Luris in your hand knowing that I have access to Valky, but you know, whatever. Once again, I'm not putting a black source into play, so I continue to shoot myself in the foot here. Sure. Got a bobble. Sure. Start by getting a black source and casting Valky, getting that Luris out of their hand. Warden's a pretty good draw. Sure. Has a Stone Forge Mystic in hand. I guess the Stream Decker's up, not whatchamacallit. Not MTG bot. It's one card off. I have a 4th Mystical Dispute in my board instead of the Mind Break Trap. I don't think SSG is the problem with this deck, Tavern. I honestly think the problem is they just need to fix the Cascade rules. Much like they did with, whatchamacallit, much like they did with the split cards here. I think they need to make it a converted. This isn't actually my list. This is the list that 3-1 to prelim. And then I took it to a 5-0 yesterday, basically playing card for card. And Squawk Chief took it to a 9-1, basically playing card for card. So the deck's just stupid. Not sure if our opponent's griefing us at this point or are they disconnected. Well, to be fair to you, Tavern, I've saw a lot of people working on a lot of things. You know, I saw Doomwake working on this nonsense. I saw, or not this nonsense, but various lists of stuff. There's been quite a few people. Even Jun, Sexy Jun was working on a variant. Canister was working on an Uro Omnath variant. I honestly think that version's probably worse than this version. I don't think you need Uro and Omnath. I completely understand wanting to just like jam those cards. Did they not search for equipment? Apparently not. Don't currently have a way to just end the game this turn. Because they have that Inkmoth Nexus that can block. Actually, if I remove both their blockers, they would have been dead, I guess. Which I guess I can still do here. I guess they're not technically dead here. Swing with both these guys. This forces them to block and activate. To be fair, I don't think it would have been very long for people to recognize Valky, because apparently it's wrecking Legacy too. So... And I know Magic, I don't know Magic, and I screwed up there. Yeah, I had an opportunity to kill them there and screwed up. I don't know how many times I've punted with this deck, and it just doesn't seem to matter. It was him. Indeed, Magus, indeed. Sure, none of this crap matters, man. You're dead. Like, I can even steal the freaking hammer. Which I think I'm going to do just for flex. Well, I don't... Who came up with this list? I want to give full credit to who came up with this specific list. Fourth, this is a prelim from the third. Hencho Bai is the person that came up with this specific list. So, like, I can't, like, speak to how they came up with this, but it's been kind of nuts. They want the hardest deck possible. That's an interesting way to put it. I guess we take Threads of Disloyalty? I'm not even sure we want Threads, honestly. Like, obviously they have Thoughtseize, so we can't necessarily just, like, 100% rely on the combo. Commandeer has some spots, but I think Commandeer is just too cute. I don't know that we can expend that many resources on what they're doing. Force of Negation at least can stop a hammer in some spots, which is important. The part I don't like about Force of Negation, in some of these decks specifically, no, I think Force is a good design, Magus. The problem with Force is, like, cards like Violent Outburst and Through the Breach, where you can combo during their turn. I think those kind of stuff are problematic. I don't like the ability to protect your combos is the problem. No, it's a necessary evil if they're going to allow certain deck types to exist. I understand it stops things like Blood Moon and stuff, which probably doesn't sit well with you, but I think Force of Negation, like, without Force, they would have to ban a lot more decks. You know, they'd have to ban... is this kind of hand a trap? Like, I don't have the combo, but I could very easily get Thoughtseized on turn 1 anyway. So I don't know that I'm supposed to mulligan toward the combo. I think I'm just going to keep this hand, especially on the draw. Making Belcher a thing. Yeah. Well, Belcher and Oops and Neobran and, yeah. Looks like they kept a reactive hand anyway. Fortunately, their deck doesn't have haste, so I can just do this. Sure. Probably would have liked to have force of negation that, but it's whatever. Surprisingly, our opponent got a hammer. Shocker. I'm not saying there aren't repercussions for allowing a card like Force of Negation to exist. I'm just saying it's kind of a necessary So that's the only copy our opponent can cast this turn. So I think we go ahead and grab this and just Force of Negation this. Kind of awkward in my fetching that I can't Supreme Verdict. So I guess that one was on me. Especially since I know Supreme Verdict's in my deck. Having a hard time keeping up with the chat here. Megas is a one-man army there. Yeah, pretty much. I think we take our 3 or 4 for 1 here. Give our opponent the false sense that they have a chance. I'm really surprised they're not firing up Sure, whatever. We have a Brazen Borrower to block if I have to. Nah, I want to keep the Teferi alive. And with Teferi, they have to play things heads up, so I'm not terribly worried about it. And 2 of their hammers are already exiled, so... Like, honestly, the card I'm most worried about right now is Luris, but... can only do so much. This is the first match this morning. At this rate, I'm not sure I'm going to get through an entire league, because I got to be off by around 10:30, 11 o'clock for work. Yeah, don't really particularly care. That's their one spell for the turn. That's the thing, is their own deafening silence is going to come back to bite them in the hand end, because they can't... Yep. Sure. Sure. So, as I was saying, this deck can also play a very poor imitation of tempo with Brazen Borrowers and Bone Crusher Giant and Mystical Disputes out of the board and such. I had to do that against Blue-White Control yesterday. That was bad. Like, it felt like I should have lost that match, with all of their Ether Gusts and Celestial Purges for my Valkies, but the problem was they couldn't answer my creatures. Like, they really... I'm not even sure they left a answer in their deck for Brazen Borrower. It was bad. It sounds really weird, right? Like, we have the double Supreme Verdict thing going here. The mana is really awkward, especially on the play. If this hand were on the draw, it'd be a lot better, actually, ironically. I still think we keep it. Turn 3, Ardent Plea on the play. Seems reasonable enough. But, you know, this hand could be awkward, I'll put it that way. Against a control opponent, this hand's probably terrible. So I need to get a white and green source potentially here. Mountain, Plains, Swamp. We actually don't have the 5th Triome in our deck, so I'm not sure we actually have green and white as an option. Mountain, Plains. So I guess we go with the Plains. Swamp. I have a feeling we're losing this game. Just a guess. Not good to draw 3 Supreme Verdicts against a blue-white control opponent. Awkward. So I know I could wait to try to jam, but this is probably our only opportunity, especially since we can't cast... especially since we can't really cast Violent Outburst. I wonder if our opponent's just going to, like, counter the Ardent Plea here. Sure. Force of Negation. Pitching Shark Typhoon. Alright. Had to go for it there. Like, it's not getting any better as we go along, so... Brazen Borrower unfortunately can't balance our Ardent Plea. I'm actually going to go ahead and scoop here. So, might be a premature early scoop, and I'm not going to sit here and deny that it is. But we can't play with the Supreme Verdict. We're already mulliganed to 5 effectively with the 2 Supreme Verdicts. And our mana is just being awkward there, which, you know, when you're playing a 5-color deck sometimes happens. What was the other card that I was removing in this matchup? I don't want to go down all my answers to creatures because, as you saw, they were playing Shark Typhoon, and so they probably have some number of Typhoons and potentially Snapcasters. It doesn't hurt to have, and then you can always bounce your own adventure creatures with Far, which can be relevant in some spots. So. Of the 5, I think of the 5 matches that I played yesterday, blue-white felt like the worst. So, I think I only lost 3 games in the entire set. One was to humans because I kept like a Teferi Force of Negation hand and 2 lands. Never draw a 3rd land for Cascade. And, you know, my Teferis and Force of Negations looks really bad against a humans deck. Even though they mulligan to Oblivion that game. One was to the blue-white deck, and then a 3rd loss, I think, was to Shadow. Played red-black Shadow and lost one of the 3 games. Yeah, this looks about as unfair as it gets. Turn 2 Violent Outburst with Force of Negation backup. Seems fair. Kept a 1-lander. It was ready. I will grant him that much. Opponent with the Commandeer. Okay, so they do have Snapcasters in their deck. No, actually, resolving a turn 2 Emrakul was the easiest game in my life. No, resolving turn 2 Emrakul is definitely easier. But against a counterspell deck, it's considerably more difficult. Now we gotta win a game on the draw, which is where Gemstone Cavern comes in. We could, but I think we were already far enough ahead without the ultimate. This hand's awkward. Like, I do think we keep this hand, even though we don't have one of the ultimates, simply because we have the double Force of Negation, Mystical Dispute. So I am going to keep this hand, but you could argue I'm supposed to mulligan toward the combo. Commandeer could be disgusting if they try to jam a Teferi or something. I don't think it'll be around for particularly long, so I don't think it's going to particularly matter. It's a reason for it to go for it at the end of their next turn. Because even if we don't resolve Tibalt, just being able to untap and land Teferi just seems kind of busted. Sure, I don't even care if you put an opt back on top of your deck. Our opponent has another counterspell, they win here. I mean, really not much we can do about it. Opponent's got Tibalt. Morning, sweet liberties. How are you? So we're up against a Luris deck. I think we're going to keep this hand against a Luris deck. Once again, it could be a Thoughtseize deck, so mulliganing down just seems dumb. And turn 2 Teferi could potentially be pretty reasonable. So far we're 1-1. We beat Hammertime and lost to a very well prepared blue-white control opponent. I mean, that said, if we rip one of our Cascade spells, we can go off on turn 1 here. Particularly Violent Outburst. Nope. Instead we just get that one, which is fine. Just want to buy time with this hand, most likely. Question is, do they have another land? Need to get a blue source here. Guess we get Hallowed Fountain. Yeah. Oh, over the Mishra's Bauble? Yeah. He might have also been... Okay, I guess we just do that. This is the point where you concede opponent. There you go. You figured it out. Alright. Easy game. So they bring in Blood Moon, which is a bit of a concern. Well, they could potentially... They most likely will bring in Blood Moon against us, which is a bit of a concern. But I don't know that you leave in Force of Negation against the Thoughtseize deck. Teferi and Brazen Borrower give us outs as long as we fetch our basics as much as we can. Bad. I think it's very bad for Modern. I think these variants of Valky, God of Lies, whatever decks are bad for Modern. Like, I actively think they're very bad. I'm going to keep this hand. Once again, doesn't have the combo, but we have a decent control game going. I think we pitch the Steam Vents here. Yeah, that's more of a trend I've noticed. These decks are going to like some style of ether gusts in them. Basically, they become Grixis Shadow without the Stubborn Denials. Or they may have Stub, who knows. Feels like they're holding up Stub or Spell Pierce, which is whatever. Well, to be fair, I think most of them are playing a worse version. I think the control guys are trying to play just a bad version of this deck, honestly. See if they want to Spell Pierce this. Let them Thoughtseize whatever they want. Just wanted to get their pressure off the board. Oh, the rules need changed. You can't ban, or you can't let this one settle down. Like, this version's actively too good for the format. Like, once people realize this is the correct way to build it, the format's going to be in some trouble. Like, a lot of trouble. Unsurprisingly, there's a Blood Moon. Was not shocked by that at all. They have Death Shadow, they have Death Shadow, it's kind of whatever here. If they don't, then they're in a lot of trouble anyway, so. We only have 3 Brazen Borrowers for outs, but, you know, that's a risk that I took. Well, the only reason Moon was good was because I didn't go for the combo earlier. And there's a chance they have a Spell Pierce in hand, or they were just bluffing and got me. You know. sure they have an answer to that, right? Need to draw Brazen Borrowers or Plains to Fairies. Yep. Otherwise, this game's going to be over pretty quick. If we draw our basic plains, we have a chance. If not, then nope. Like I said, I would like to know if they were bluffing a Spell Pierce or not. Like if they actually had one. I do not. There's a basic island and a basic plains. I still don't think it's worth bringing in Force of Negation. You know, there's still a discard spell deck. Oh, it pops up from time to time. Can't keep this hand. If we had one more land, I would consider keeping that one. Keep. Put back a Valky, I guess. Got to make a decision with this Pluto Delta here. Which we'll wait to see what they thought sees. Okay, they are playing Stubborn Denial, so maybe it wasn't a bluff after all. We could get locked under Blood Moon here. Red, green, Forest, Island, Mountain. So there's no way we can do this and cast Valky this turn. Hope they don't moon us, I guess. What a weird game. Sure. See if they have the bolt for Valky, which is fine. Apparently not. Morning, Direwolf. How are you? So I think I'm gonna decisions here. So I could double spell with Scourge and Valky. I could just guaranteed get another Tibalt here. Guess I'm more interested in seeing what's going on over there. Slime gets punished by removal spells in the Blood Moon. Think just gonna do that. So I think they misplayed. I think they should have just played Swift Spear and killed Valky with damage last turn. Well, it's 6/6 for 4, technically. Target player sacrifices a creature. Wanted to draw a land, just not necessarily that land. I mean, it's still better than having to... Do I want to shock in here is the thing. There's no small amount of things that kill us from here. Said I'm not attacking here. Okay, I don't think the match was over quite yet, though. Like, unless they boarded out most of their bolts, it didn't feel like that match was quite over just yet. So, I hate to wrap a little bit early, but given got to get to work here, get ready for work here in the next half hour or so. Quick thoughts on the deck so far. The deck is absurdly powerful. The fact that it gets to play a ridiculously powerful turn 2, turn 3, turn 1 sometimes play that can outvalue any deck by doing its thing, by literally stealing the opponent's own thing, and then gets to play this reasonable control game, and then on top of that gets to have a reasonable control matchup with Force of Negation, Mystical Dispute, Violent Outburst, and a tempo playing a little bit. I don't think this deck will be healthy for the format moving forward. I think there needs to be an errata to the way the two-face cards work. I think you need to have the converted mana cost only be castable of the side that's cheaper, or make the converted mana cost the combined cost, much like they did with these dual-sided, or not the dual-sided, the split cards. Like they got rid of Boom Bust and Beck Call, just because those effects are a little bit too powerful for things like As Foretold and Electro Dominance and Cascade spells and such. I really think that needs gone from the format. As far as the rest of the format, Trickery, a little too early to call. I don't think it's healthy for the format, but, you know, I don't think Upsal spells or Belcher or those things are healthy for the format either. And they've continued to allow those to exist. But I do think this is the most unhealthy thing for the format right now. These Tibalt's 3-color, 4-color, 5-color Cascade piles. Literally, people are just literally building around Cascade spells and Valky. I saw, who was it? Somebody was working on a green-red Eldrazi list with that in it. I mean, there's all kind of crazy things going on in the format right now. And I think once people settle on the best list in the format, I think it's going to be extremely unhealthy for the format. And I honestly think that this list is a little bit smoother than the Uro Omnath piles. The Uro Omnath piles may end up being the better type. I don't know. I know Canster and somebody else was working on that yesterday. But this pile is ridiculous. The only match of the 7-8 matches I've played so far that I've lost was to a blue-white opponent that was packing Commandeers in addition to everything else that blue-white normally has, like Celestial Purges and Ether Guests and all that nonsense. So, yeah, if that's the only thing that can consistently give this deck problems, I don't think that's a healthy place for the format. Once again, a little bit of early results. But there was a 3-1 prelim. Squad Chief went 9-1 with this yesterday. I had a 5-0 with this yesterday and a 2-1 so far today. Once again, not a lot of results. Maybe the format can adapt, but I don't think this is overall very healthy for the format. So, I think that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning. Once again, I usually stream either in the mornings or late in the evenings. It's kind of varied because I work 1 to 10, so it's kind of like I either stream in the mornings before work or after work. So those are generally my time slots, usually from like 9 to 11 Eastern, or from like midnight to 2 Eastern. It just depends. But if you like modern content, please consider subscribing or giving us a follow. Check out our YouTube channel. And beyond that, I hope you all have a great day. Thanks. This has been John for MTG Nexus.